JD Vance owns Margaret Brennan and CBS News. Donald Trump owns the entire country of Colombia. And Donald Trump owns the hearts and minds of the American people. New polls that CNN literally can't believe. In fact, the host on TV said, I can't believe these numbers because, well, she can't believe those numbers. And what else have we got? I forgot. Oh, and Trump owns the mayor of Los Angeles. There's a lot of owning going on. I own a new studio. No, I'm on location in an undisclosed bunker. It does. It looks like a bunker, doesn't it? That's all right. I'm here. You're here. So let's do it. We're brought to you by Birch Gold. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Thanks for watching the live stream today. Really thrilled that you're here. We're coming up. It's official now. It's been 1 week since Donald Trump took the oath of office. It feels like a month. Phenomenal what the man's gotten to do. And this weekend was a perfect example of how energetic he is and how he's winning. And that means you're winning. So we're going to get right to it in a minute. But first, increased tariffs on our trade partners, tax cuts, regulation changes. Learn why gold is a viable diversification tactic now more than ever. Birch Gold, the only gold company I endorse, is releasing their ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. To get your free copy along with Birch Gold's free information kit on gold, text my name, Larry, Larry, to the number 989898. Here are the facts, okay? The national debt continues to increase. Our interest payments on that national debt continue to increase. Gold is still your hedge against a weakened dollar. And Birch Gold, well, it's still the company I recommend to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. Did you get that? This is not new money that you have to pay out of your pocket. This is money you already have sitting in an IRA or a 401k. They're going to convert that money into gold. No brainer, right? Text Larry to 989898. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era with a foreword by Donald Trump Jr. There's no obligation. There's no obligation, just information. Do that today. Thank you very much. I don't know if you remember, but after the vice presidential debate this last go around with JD Vance and Tim Walz, we did the show the next day, and I said, I don't think I've ever been more proud of a candidate for national office as a Republican than I was of JD Vance's performance. It was a seminal moment. I think if you look at the polls, it was part of the turnaround that sort of squashed any hope that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz had of winning the White House. JD Vance was magnificent, and he continues to grow. He's just an ordinary guy, but he knows his stuff. And he announced last week that his very first interview after being inaugurated as the vice president would be with Margaret Brennan of Face the Nation. And I thought to myself, why? Why are you doing that? Why are you rewarding CBS News, this organization that hates you, hates Trump, hates Republicans, hates me for voting Republican? Why are you awarding them this really exclusive first interview post-inauguration? And then the interview happened, and then I got it. He didn't go on there to reward them. He didn't go on there to give them some gift. He went on there to own them, to destroy them, to shut them up, if possible. Margaret Brennan is the host of Face the Nation, and she was quite sure that she was going to dominate JD Vance. She was wrong. We've got a lot of clips to go through, so let's do it.
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary
Do you stand by
concern
it?
as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people
it's
are
not
vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted. And many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted. And because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country. And I think most Americans agree with me.
I don't really care, Margaret, is going to become my new catchphrase, I think. Or maybe I'll use it around the house when my wife wants me to do something. Her name is not Margaret, but I think she'll get the point. What a boss move that was. As again, Margaret Brennan trying to fact check in real time. Well, no one really knows whether that person was radicalized in Afghanistan or here in Oklahoma.
Person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
We'll be back.
Whoop. Oh, I went back. Not enough.
Or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country. By the way, there's another great reveal there from Margaret Brennan where she says, well, all these people have been vetted. 30,000 Afghans, they're here for refugee status. They've been vetted. And JD Vance has to remind her that there was a terrorist plot that was upended with arrests made in Oklahoma that was supposed to be a big terror attack on Election Day. People forget this stuff, right? It was just a couple of months ago. It's a huge deal, right? Margaret Brennan either forgot about that, and her job is to know the news, or she just wrote it off and thought it was unimportant. Well, but the most important tell, I think, in that entire thing was when she kept interrupting JD Vance saying, oh, no, these people have been vetted. These people have been vetted. These people have been vetted. And that's not true. That's not accurate. The accurate statement from a news person and professional journalist would be the Biden administration claims these people have been vetted. And of course, JD Vance had to point out the fruits of that vetting. That was the terror plot that was discovered out of Oklahoma. All right, we're just getting started. This is a great exchange as well, but I really like the smug look on Margaret Brennan's face where she thinks she's got this gotcha moment with JD Vance. Just take a look watch her face.
Well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded by
country.
This is a very unique country, and it was founded by some immigrants and some settlers. But just because we were founded by immigrants doesn't mean that 240 years later that we have to have the dumbest immigration policy in the world.
That is so good. We are a nation founded by immigrants, and that doesn't mean we need to be stupid about immigration. But once again, watch her face. What's going on with her?
Oh, well, this is a country founded by immigrants.
Well, this is a country founded by
country.
This is a very unique.
That's just freaking me out. And seriously, this stuff of nightmares. And the fact that JD Vance could just sit there calmly and just deliver facts. He won this exchange on facts. By the way, notice the words I use. He won the exchange, almost like it's a debate, not an interview, a debate. And Margaret Brennan, with her pad of paper, you notice he doesn't have any notes. He doesn't have any cards. He's just got his brain. He just responds to everything. She's got her whole pad of information there in her cheat sheet, plus a producer talking in her ear. And her goal was to defeat and destroy JD Vance. And as I said, it didn't really work out well, did it? All right, more of the smug face. Now, this one has to do with the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. They use this all the time, actually. JD Vance is a recent convert to the Catholic Church. Certain leadership in the Catholic Church have voiced concern over immigrants in this country. Just to be clear, as a Catholic, it is not doctrine or dogma, and every Catholic must not agree with everything that the bishops and the magisterium tell us about immigrants. In fact, in our catechism, it specifically says that countries have a right to have their own borders and enforce their laws. But that's not the point here. The point here is that Margaret Brennan tries to trap JD Vance as a Catholic on immigration policy. Do you remember any journalist at all ever doing that to Joe Biden or Nancy Pelosi or any left-wing liberal proclaimed Catholic over abortion? The answer is no. Don't even try to look it up. For that, they're happy with them being Catholics who are completely against the doctrine and dogma of their faith. But here with immigration, well, you need to answer to the Lord.
Let me just address this particular issue, Margaret, because as a practicing Catholic, I was actually heartbroken by that statement. And I think that the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops needs to actually look in the mirror a little bit and recognize that when they receive over $100 million to help resettle illegal immigrants, are they worried about humanitarian concerns, or are they actually worried about their bottom line? We are going to enforce immigration law. We're going to protect the American people. Yeah. Donald Trump promised to do that. And I believe the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, if they're worried about the humanitarian costs of immigration enforcement, let them talk about the children who have been sex trafficked because of the wide open border of Joe Biden.
You personally
let them talk about people like Laken Riley who were brutally murdered. I support us doing law enforcement against violent criminals, whether they're illegal immigrants or anybody else, in a way that keeps us safe.
Yeah, and if those violent criminals are in a church or a school, then yes, law enforcement should take care of them. One of the, again, masterful, and I'm the last person who should give any suggestions to JD Vance, but as a Catholic and as a fellow Catholic, I would also love for him to say, and by the way, Margaret, even if the church in Rome dictated a policy that was contrary to what was right for the American people or constitutionally correct for the United States of America, my obligation as vice president is to uphold the Constitution of the United States and what the American people need. Otherwise, I would step down from office if it conflicted with my faith and with the Catholic Church. But by trotting this out here, you are bringing up some of the worst kind of bigotry against Catholics that have held sway in America, sadly, since our founding. There's a reason why we've had so few Catholics elected to high office, because there's this myth that we will have an allegiance to the pontiff in Rome rather than to the Constitution of the American people. And what you're doing is a soft kind of anti-Catholic bigotry, and I resent it. See, he should have done that, because it's nice to play their cards against them, because that is, by the way, exactly what that was. Well, you have this policy and you're Catholic and the bishops say it should be this. So now what are you going to do? And it plays into this myth that suddenly Catholics who hold elected office have to do whatever Rome says, which is, bigoted. All right, more Margaret Brennan, JD Vance. It's just a treasure trove. It was so glorious, this interview.
Things you experience at the grocery store, or what people touch and feel. That's what you were talking about, bacon on the campaign trail.
Of course. of course.
Those things, when do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives?
Can I just pause it there for a minute? So we're this was recorded 5 days after Inauguration Day. 5 days. And Margaret Brennan is complaining about the fact that bacon and eggs and milk prices haven't come down yet. Now, they spent the last 4 years pretending like the prices weren't going up. And if they were going up, it was transitory. And if they stayed up, well, it was your imagination. And then if the price didn't go up as much as it did in the summer of 2022, they pretended like the prices were going down. Hey, inflation is down, everybody. No, the prices are still going up. They're just not going up as much as they were. No, inflation is down. Or they would say, we have the strongest economy on the planet. So you'd say, well, I can't afford groceries, but we have the strongest economy on the planet. And you're like, for whom? And they're like, it doesn't matter because Biden said we have the strongest economy on the planet. So they did that for 4 years. We're now 5 days in. Hey, my bacon, my eggs, but not to mention the fact that we have a swine flu, or not swine flu, that would be pigs, avian flu outbreak that's driving up cost of eggs. It has nothing to do with government policy and economic policy. But it's amazing how suddenly they've all found religion on inflation and on prices. When do people get lower prices, JD? When? And by the way, as unfair and despicable as the hypocrisy is in that question from Margaret Brennan and CBS News, JD Vance still handled it perfectly. Do you want to watch him handle it perfectly? I bet you do. Here it is.
In their lives.
Well, Margaret, how does bacon get to the grocery store? It comes on trucks that are fueled by diesel fuel. If the diesel is way too expensive, the bacon's going to become more expensive. How do we grow the bacon? Our farmers need energy to produce it. So if we lower energy prices, we are going to see lower prices for consumers. And that is what we're trying to fight for.
All right. And now the next moment in this JD Vance gotcha session, interview from Margaret Brennan. This one, of course, has to do with the January 6 pardons. And, well, JD Vance handles it like a man.
2 weeks ago, you were on Fox News and you said, if you protested peacefully on January 6th and had Merrick Garland's Department of Justice treat you like a gang member, you should be pardoned. If you committed violence on that day, obviously you shouldn't be pardoned. Did you counsel the president against these blanket pardons for 1,500 people?
Well, Margaret,
all right. So now you see the way the question is framed. You said this and the president did that. So is he just ignoring you? Are you fighting? Do you have any influence? Did you say anything to him? Or are you just, what's the point? Are you going to quit? Are you going to, it's not about eliciting information. It's not about helping the American voter and get them more informed. No, it's a gotcha. It's about, and again, Vance nails it.
Including those who committed violence.
Margaret, I noticed that you cut off the thing that I said immediately after that. The full quote is that, of course, there are gray areas. And here's the nature of the gray area. Merrick Garland's Department of Justice denied constitutional protections in the prosecutions. There were double standards and how sentences were applied to the J6 protesters versus other groups. What the president said consistently on the campaign is that he was going to look at a case-by-case basis, and that's exactly what we did. We looked at 1,600 cases, and the thing that came out of it, Margaret, is that there was a massive denial of due process of liberty, and a lot of people were denied their constitutional rights. The president believes that. I believe that, and I think he made the right decision.
Daniel Rodriguez used an electroshock weapon against a policeman who was dragged out of the defensive line by plunging it into the officer's neck. He was imprisoned, sentenced to 12 years, 7 months. He got a pardon. Ronald Maccabee hit a cop while wearing reinforced brass knuckle gloves, and he held one down on the ground as other rioters assailed the officer for over 20 seconds, causing a concussion. If you stand with law enforcement, how can you call these people unjustly imprisoned?
Margaret, you're separating, there's an important issue here. There's what the people actually did on January the 6th, and we're not saying that everybody did everything perfectly. And then what did Merrick Garland's Department of Justice do in unjustly prosecuting well over 1,000 Americans in a way that was politically motivated?
Is violence like that against a police officer ever justified?
Violence against a police officer is not justified, but that doesn't mean that you should have Merrick Garland's weaponized Department of Justice expose you to incredibly unfair process, to denial of constitutional rights, and frankly, to a double standard that was not applied to many people, including, of course, the Black Lives Matter rioters who killed over 24 people and never had the weight of a weaponized Department of Justice come against them. The pardon power is not just for people who are angels or people who are perfect. And of course, we love our law enforcement and want people to be peaceful with everybody, but especially with our good cops. That's a separate issue from what Merrick Garland's Department of Justice did. We rectified a wrong, and I stand by it.
Well done. Well, good God, he's so good. And the infantile line of questioning here. I swear, I feel like we learned this, and maybe this is the school system. I'm a little older than Margaret Brennan. Things may have changed quickly there at some point, but I feel like I learned this in 5th grade in basic social studies at Farrand Elementary School in Plymouth, Michigan. But where we learned about our system of justice, which means that even if you're a bad guy and you break the law, that doesn't mean the police and the judge and the court system can treat you unfairly and violate your rights. And if they do violate your rights, you go free. And it was determined by the chief law enforcement officer in this country, the President of the United States, that Merrick Garland and Joe Biden did, in fact, violate the rights, even of people who did bad things. If we're able to grandstand and say, well, is violence against a police officer ever justified? Ask Al Sharpton that question. Ask Al Sharpton that question. Ask Rashida Tlaib that question. Ask Cory Booker that question. Love to see what their answer is. Ask oh God, what's her name? The crazy woman in Los Angeles. No justice, no peace. Get in the face of all the Trump people.
Maxine Waters.
Maxine Waters. Thank you, Kevin, for the rescue. Ask Maxine Waters that question. Or Gavin Newsom, for that matter. The double standard in hypocrisy is gross and disgusting. All right. So that's the January 6th aspect. Oh, here we go. More of JD Vance brilliance against Margaret Brennan.
The Wall Street Journal and the National Review, conservative publications, as you know, have been critical of Tulsi Gabbard. The Review called her an atrocious nominee who deserves to be defeated. They compared her defense of Edward Snowden, the fugitive who stole U.S. secrets, to an attorney general who thinks the mob gets a bad rap. Her refusal to accept U.S. intelligence findings that Assad gassed his own people, they said, was like a nominee for OMB director not being able to count. Does any of this give you pause putting her in charge of the U.S. intelligence community? Yes or no?
No, Margaret, look, these are publications that attacked Donald J. Trump obsessively, but those publications don't determine who the president is, the American people do.
Him.
And Donald J. Trump is the person who determines who his cabinet is, not these publications that I think, frankly, have lost relevance. Here's Tulsi Gabbard.
I'm going to let him finish here because he's got great stuff to say about Tulsi Gabbard, but I do love that. Obviously, you know, Town Hall and all of the websites at Town Hall that I work for don't fall into this category. But National Review and Wall Street Journal oppose Trump. And she's like, eventually they supported him. Oh, so they opposed him all through his presidency, all through the last campaign, all through this campaign. And then at the end, given the choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. They eventually supported him. So clearly, Donald Trump should do whatever National Review and Wall Street Journal tell him to do. Really, Margaret? And by the way, I know people like Margaret Brennan. I know the people over at CBS News. They make fun of the Wall Street Journal. They make fun of National Review. They think that they're stupid, but they only use them as a weapon. Well, National Review said this, and it's 1984 all over again right now. I shouldn't say 84 because that's George. It makes you think I'm talking about George Orwell. I mean the Reagan 80s. And so they're the only game in town. They're the only conservative paper out there. Yeah, it's not that way anymore. There are a lot of influential conservative voices. To hear JD Vance to say, yeah, they don't really have much relevance anymore because they've gotten it wrong so often. And they forget the people. They forget the people who actually buy their subscriptions and read it. Look at the circulation of those. I don't know Wall Street Journals, but I did see National Review's circulation the other day. Not pretty, not good. But you can trust Town Hall, by the way. Town Hall, Hot Air, Red State, PJ Media, Twitchy, all of our sites. All right, let's get back to this.
Well, the Senate will provide advice and consent as is its constitutional obligation, but I feel confident that Tulsi Gabbard will ultimately get through. Two things that are important to know about Tulsi. First of all, she's a career military servant who's had a classification at the highest levels for nearly 2 decades. She has impeccable character, impeccable record of service. And she also is a person who I think is going to bring some trust back to the intelligence services. The bureaucrats at our intelligence services have gotten completely out of control. They've been part of the weaponization of our political system, the weaponization of our justice system. We need to have good intelligence services who keep us safe, but part of that is restoring trust in those services, and we think Tulsi is the right person to do it.
That's why the president trust those intelligence services.
She recognizes the bureaucrats have gotten out of control, and we need somebody there who's going to rein them in and return those services to their core mission of identifying information that's going to keep us safe.
That was a weird thing for her to say there. It's like, well, she doesn't trust the intelligence services. Good. The director of national intelligence shouldn't have a lot of trust. He should constantly be challenging the intelligence services. By the way, at this point, after everything that's happened over the last 20 years, who does have faith in our intelligence community? My favorite tweet that somebody put out there, I think it was from John Levine, the reporter at the New York Post, where somebody at the CIA in an article was saying, well, John Ratcliffe coming in here and changing things the way he has as the new CIA director, we didn't really expect this. And John Levine said, you're a spy. Isn't that kind of your job? Say, we didn't see this coming. That's the problem. You're supposed to see things coming, like 9/11, like terror attacks, like school shootings, like all the things that that person was on our radar, but we didn't see this coming. You never see anything coming. I love that. That's hilarious. Also, Vance points something out here that needs to be emphasized. Tulsi Gabbard's confirmation hearing is going to be this Thursday in the Senate, and you're going to hear a lot of lies. And you're going to hear what Margaret Brennan just repeated from the National Review editorial board, which is she's cozied up to dictators like Vladimir Putin and Bashar Assad. I don't even want to argue the point right now about the details of whatever meetings she may have taken or whatever statements she may have made about Vladimir Putin or Bashar al-Assad. Irrelevant for a moment, because the bigger picture is this, and people forget this all the time. She was active duty United States Army. She's an officer in the United States Army in the reserves. Active duty, which means she holds a security clearance, regardless of, and she's a private citizen right now. She's not a member of Congress. I assure you, I mean, as bad as our military has gotten, sadly, in the leadership levels at the Pentagon, down boots on the ground type people are really solid individuals. They know their stuff. They know what they're doing. If there was an officer in the chain of command, I think she's a major, okay, so mid-level officer. If there's an officer in the chain of command in our military that is cozying up to dictators and in the back pocket of Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin, I assure you, she would be disciplined. She would be stripped of her rank. She would lose her clearance. She would be court-martialed. It's ridiculous, these allegations they're making against her. It makes no sense. One other quick clip here. This has to do with Pete Hegseth and what he'll do at the Pentagon.
Well, look, I think Pete is a disruptor, and a lot of people don't like that disruption. But Margaret, that disruption is incredibly necessary. If you think about all of those bipartisan massive votes, we have to ask ourselves, what did they get us? They got us a country where we fought many wars over the last 40 years, but haven't won a war. about as long as I've been alive. They've got us a military with a major recruitment crisis, a procurement price crisis that's totally dysfunctional, where we buy airplanes for billions and billions of dollars, terrible cost overruns. The delivery dates are always delayed. So we need a big change. Now, admittedly, there are people who don't like that big change, but it is necessary, and it's explicitly what Donald J. Trump ran on. And I think part of the reason why the American people elected him their 47th president.
All right, that was just brilliant. Absolutely beautiful, and I loved every minute of it. Do you notice he keeps saying Donald J. Trump, Donald J. Trump? I think they focus group this, and they found that liberals hate it. Like Margaret Brennan, like people in the media, they hate pointing out the J part of the Donald J. Trump because he just keeps doing it over and over again. And I think he just likes, with a grin on his face, he likes to twist the knife a bit. It was fantastic. It was the most brutal takedown of Margaret Brennan and the greatest performance of JD Vance I've seen since August, when we had this. No, it was September. This brutal takedown of Margaret Brennan and this brilliant performance by JD Vance. But at this time, it was during the vice presidential debate. I don't know if you remember this exchange, but Margaret Brennan was up to her tricks back then, even with the same smug, supercilious attitude.
Thank you, Governor. And just to clarify for our viewers, Springfield, Ohio does have a large number of Haitian migrants who have legal status, temporary protected status.
Well, Margaret, but
thank you, Senator. We have so much to get to.
Margaret, I think it's important because
we're going to turn out of the economy. Thank
Margaret,
you.
The rules were that you guys weren't going to fact check, and since you're fact checking me, I think it's important to say what's actually going on. So there's an application called the CBP One app, where you can go on as an illegal migrant, apply for asylum or apply for parole, and be granted legal status at the wave of a Kamala Harris open border wand. That is not a person coming in, applying for a green card and waiting for 10 years. That is the facilitation of illegal immigration, Margaret, by our own leadership.
Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. We have so much to get to.
Oh, God, so annoying and smug. And did you notice that? Thank you, Senator, for describing the legal process. No, thank you for adding context and reality to this question. Also, check out Tim Walz's face on the split screen. God, did we dodge a bullet. That was only 4 months ago. Good God, what we've been through together. Also, one other thing in this interview, I don't know if you noticed something about Margaret Brennan during the interview. She's got, shall we say, a rather animated face with very expressive expressions. This is a montage put together by our buddy Kyle Becker. I used to work with Kyle years ago. He's a good guy. This is amazing. Look at the center one. It's like the worst nightmare version of the Brady Bunch you'll ever see in your life. What's going on with her? I think, you know what? I could be wrong. And if I am, I'm sorry. But if I'm right, who can blame her? I think she's got a crush. I think she likes herself a little JD. Well, Margaret, that's Mr. Vice President to you. And he's taken by his wife, Usha, and by all of us. He's our guy. Stand in line. On Friday, Donald Trump went to California to survey the damage from the forest fires that wiped out the Pacific Palisades neighborhood, amongst others. And then he did something that I'd totally forgotten about. This was some of the best stuff that we saw in the first Trump presidency, where he would bring in the cameras to what would normally be a closed-door meeting so the American people can see how the sausage is made. And in this case, the sausage is wrangling over red tape, regulations, and funding to help California and Los Angeles get out of this disaster that they've got. Enter the illustrious mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. You remember her. She was in Ghana at a cocktail party when her city was burning. She hasn't had a smart thing to say this entire time, and she kept her streak alive on Friday. But take a look at this amazing exchange with Karen Bass, the mayor, who doesn't know anything about what she's talking about, and Donald Trump, not just the president of the United States second term, thank you very much, but also a man who built buildings in some of the most hostile environments, including Manhattan, where he had to deal with the city, he had to deal with the county, he had to deal with the state, he had to deal with the feds, and he had to deal with a mob. And he knows exactly how people screw you around and try to milk you for every penny you're worth. and delay your entire project. And here, this isn't a big giant skyscraper he's building. These are people's homes. And he had enough.
We're bringing our city departments together so that people don't get caught in the loop of going from one room to the next. We want them all to be in the same room so that you can get busy rebuilding ASAP. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. And we will clear the lots. Absolutely. In the city and in the county. We are working together. Both levels of government are working in unity.
Months? Is it like we that's the answer that we got, and that's what we're all hanging on?
Yes.
So if you're telling us now faster, is it 6 months? Is it, I mean, all of our lives, rents, all this stuff is weighing on this.
6 months is no good.
And the number one thing that we are going to do immediately, and you will see this happen, is to clear out the debris. And we're concerned right now over the weekend because of the potential rain, but we are going to move as fast as we can, but we want you to be safe, and we want you to be back in your homes immediately.
But the people are willing to clean out their own debris. It doesn't
Yes,
cost
and
a
they
lot.
can.
You
and
should
they are
let them
able
do
to-
it, because
No,
by the
they
time you
can do
hire
that.
contractors, it's
Right.
going to be 2 years.
If a family.
People are willing to get a dumpster and do it themselves and clean it out.
And they can.
There's
do
not that much left. It's all incinerated.
That's right.
And, it's just going to take a long time if you do. You can do some of it, but a lot of these people, I know that guy right there that's talking. I know my people. You'll be on that thing tonight, throwing the stuff away, and your site it'll look perfect within 24 hours. And that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to wait around for 7 months till the city hires some demolition contract
If
that's going to
individuals
charge him
want to build-
$25,000 to do his lot.
This is so good. And again, he's talking like this is Donald Trump, the developer. This is Donald Trump, the builder. This is Donald Trump who knows what the hell he's talking about. And Karen Bass doesn't know anything. As a former Californian and former Angelina, let me tell you, I don't know Karen Bass. I had moved out of there before she became mayor, but I assure you that no mayor of Los Angeles has ever had to deal with a forum like this before. You see, one of the biggest problems in California is not only that it's one-party rule, and every Democrat in charge there doesn't have to worry or get threatened by someone from the opposing political party that might challenge them. They know that they will win every re-election. So it makes them complacent and corrupt and inept. All right. But they also never have to deal with the press. See, this open forum here where citizens can just chime in and start talking directly to their elected officials, that doesn't happen in LA. And reporters never demand that sort of thing, because reporters hate this too, because they're the only ones that get to ask questions of these people. It's their job to speak truth to power. So they've got a little monopoly on things too. And there's only one newspaper in town, the LA Times, and pardon me, but it sucks. And so this never happens. Now, what you just saw there was a fascinating exchange where one of the citizens said, but you guys have been telling me that I can't get in there and do my thing. And she said, well, we want you to be safe. And she says, well, I'm willing to go in there and take the risk. It's my home. I want to go through the rubble. I want to see what survived. I want to see if I've got photo albums. I want to see, and I don't want your contractors to do that, because you don't know what matters to me. You might think it's all trash, but some of that stuff might still be something that I want to keep. It's my stuff. I own it. It's my home. It's my property. And she said, well, we're going to go in there. We're going to clean things out for you. And Trump jumps in and says, they want to do it themselves. If they want to do it. And she said, well, of course, yes, if people want to. But see, she's either stupid or she's lying. She keeps saying, they can. But then watch what gets revealed as he presses the issue. Because you take it from that exchange you just saw. The mayor of Los Angeles is saying, oh, if an individual wants to go in there to their home and start cleaning up the debris, they can do that, right? That's what she said. Well, watch.
I think you have emergency powers just like I do, and I'm exercising my emergency powers. You have to exercise them also.
I did exercise them.
Because I looked,
signed
I mean,
an
you have a very
emergency
powerful
declaration.
emergency power, and you
Yes.
can do everything within 24 hours.
Yes. And if individuals want to clear out their property, they can. Well, yes, but you know that you will be able to go back soon.
Mr. President.
We think within a week.
Did you see that? If individuals want to go back in, they can. And then they start yelling back saying, no, you just told us we can't. She goes, oh, well, you will be able to go back maybe within a week. So is she just a moron? Or is she just a flat out liar? I know. It could be both. It probably is both. But it doesn't end well. Eventually, you'll watch her little Democrat aide there sitting to her right. He takes her microphone away from her because it's like, don't do any more. You've caused enough damage.
That's a long time a week. I'll be honest. To me, everyone's standing in front of their house. They want to go to work and they're not allowed to do it.
And the most important
week
thing
is
is
a
for
long
people to
time.
be safe.
They're safe. They're safe. You know what? They're not safe. They're not safe now. They're going to be much safer. A week is actually a long time, the way I look at it. I watched hundreds of people standing in front of their lots, and they're not allowed to go in. It's all burned. It's gone. It's done. Nothing's going to happen to it. It's not going to burn anymore. There's nothing to burn. There's almost nothing to burn. And they want to go in. The people are all over the place. They're standing, and I say, why aren't you going in? We're trying to get a permit, and the permit's going to take them. Everybody said 18 months. You said 18 months. You said 18 months.
That was last night.
And that was last night.
On that.
We can't even see our homes right now. We are blocked from entering our streets.
Right.
We can't even, this is our first time we saw our house was yesterday.
Yeah, this was magnificent. And by the way, let me cut to the chase. Within 36 hours, the roads were opened and the residents of Pacific Palisades were once again allowed to go back to their homes. And so if it should have happened immediately, it happened. I think it just took a little over 24 hours. And all of these people here, they got action because President Trump flew Air Force One to LAX and ended up over at this meeting in a garage, it looks like, in Pacific Palisades, or a storage room of some kind. Karen Bass, the most important thing is we want you to be safe. Yeah, we just lived through the COVID-19 pandemic. Guess what? We're not playing that bullshit anymore. You don't know anything about keeping me safe. Stop treating me like a child. Does anyone here think that Karen Bass is capable of keeping you safer than you are capable of keeping yourself safe? Do you think Karen Bass knows better to keep your children safe? Who wants to surrender their safety to the likes of Karen Bass rather than just fend for yourself and do your own thing and take care of yourself? It's honestly, this goes to the fundamental principles of the founding of our nation. I have no doubt that King George III thought he was keeping the colonists safe. So now we get into an exchange with Brad Sherman, who is a lamentably inept congressman. But again, because he's in Sherman Oaks, California, he gets reelected every 2 years. Sherman, he is a left-wing Democrat, part of the problem as usual, and he starts going at it with Trump over funding and Donald Trump's proposition that California can have all the funding that they want. They change their policies with regard to forestation and water usage, and they allow for voter ID. And Brad Sherman didn't like that. Now, I'll explain why voter ID is connected directly to these fires in a moment, but look at this exchange.
Mr. President, without your help, they're only going to get $43,000 from the federal government, even if they have a half $1 million
you did something,
loss.
Brad, where every insurance company in the country left California. That's why you have no insurance, because you made it so impossible. People that think like you made it so impossible. And
Brad, me,
every
Mr.
insurance
President,
company.
I don't know what
I'll tell you
know
this,
about my thinking.
I've never seen a state where almost nobody has insurance. And I said, what happened? And they said like 6 months ago, they all left. And 2 years ago, they had different, quadrants, but they left. And you have very little insurance here. I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, that was on the insurance issue earlier. Brad Sherman was saying we need to get that federal funding and there shouldn't be any strings attached. I would never put strings attached to funding for Louisiana and say they can get federal funding for their emergency hurricane assistance, but only if they change their abortion laws. Let me just zoom out a little bit here on you, because I know that your liberal brother-in-law is going to start flaming you on your Facebook page as you try to make the case for this. So here's what you need to know. Number one, that's exactly what the left does. Go back and look at the funding for hurricane disaster relief last year for Florida. It was January. It was a year ago now, I believe. It was a hurricane that had happened in the late fall, early winter in Florida. And they tied Ukraine war funding to that hurricane relief. They do this all the time. Democrats do. Oh, Florida wants their hurricane relief. Well, everyone's going to have to vote for Ukraine war funding first. In addition to it, it's going to tie it all together. All right. So they do that all the time. Number one. Number two, abortion laws in Louisiana have nothing to do with how they're equipped to handle a hurricane. All right. Trump's specific demands on California are directly related to their ability to not have this disaster happen again. Number one, change your forest policies and your water usage policies. And number two, voter ID. And you're like, voter ID, what does that got to do with forest fires? Well, because this is a government failure. These people were failed by their elected officials. Until you have free, fair, legal elections in the state of California, you're going to keep getting the same people reelected every single time. And they're part of the natural disaster. All right, one last clip here from this extraordinary town hall.
That the merit shouldn't be heard, but we need to hear them and we need to move on, resolve them.
Is this a state group, state or federal group?
This is a local group, actually, Mr. President, but they have help from the state.
They use the environment to make themselves feel good, and they're destroying our country. And you've got to, at some point, you've got to put your foot down. I know exactly what you're talking. You have local and state groups, and you have federal groups too. And you got to fight them the right way, because you'll never, even if the mayor gives, you're going to have a local group come in and sue. You're not allowed to go on your property. They're going to talk about asbestos and every other thing. They want to go on their property and they want to clean out their property. And you cannot let anything get in their way. And you'll have this place built up quickly, beautiful. It'll be more beautiful than before. And I would do one other thing. I'd give them a 10%, 15% bonus on their house, because they went through hell. And they should be allowed to build a little bit, give them a little bit lot line bonus, give them a bonus on.
I love it. I love the developer. The real estate man is negotiating. Let them have some more square footage. Let them have a little 10%, but when they're building up, make it a little bigger so they have more home value. Why not? They've been through hell. Let them do it. But my favorite part is when this guy is lamenting all these environmental groups that are keeping them from doing stuff. And you heard the tone in Trump's voice. I know exactly what you're talking about. I know exactly these groups. They've been driving me up the wall for years, ever since I built my first Trump Tower. I love it. I do love it. And listen, there's a lot about Donald Trump as president of the United States that's going to heal this country and fix this country and make this country better. And there's this one last intangible, though, at moments like this, the developer, the real estate man, the builder, who knows directly what the hell these people are going through, and he knows how to fix it and get it done properly. And then he's got to deal with these mental midgets like Karen Bass standing in his way, waving red tape. Gavin Newsom is patting himself on the back. He's going to sprain his arm, patting himself on the back. He's so proud of himself by saying, we've eliminated all the red tape for your rebuilding so you can rebuild faster and more efficiently. And nobody bothers to get in his face and say, why the hell was that there in the first place? Why can't we build faster and more efficiently every day? Why does it take a natural disaster? Why does it take a forest fire to get you to do this, you idiot? And the answer is, well, because then we wouldn't have any power anymore. And that's why Trump is essential at times like this. And that's why what we saw on Friday was exquisite. And it was only his 5th day on the job. When Donald Trump left Los Angeles and he was flying back east, he took on another foe. And this time it wasn't just the city of Los Angeles or the red tape in the state of California. This time it was an entire foreign country. Here's how Fox News presented the story this morning.
New tariff in town. Play on words, obviously. Jackie Heinrich, senior White House correspondent now. Jackie.
Yeah, Harris, this could have been a very consequential trade war, but President Trump told Fox last night that Colombia's president did a total about face after that tariff threat was clear, that it would be crushing. Here's what he was putting in motion. Emergency 25% tariffs on all goods coming into the United States. In 1 week, those tariffs would raise to 50%. A travel ban and immediate visa revocation on Colombian government officials, all allies and supporters, visa sanctions on all party members, family members, and supporters of the Colombian government, enhanced customs and border protection inspections of all Colombian nationals and cargo on national security grounds, and IEEPA treasury, banking, and financial sanctions to be fully imposed. It was just a matter of hours before the Colombian president posted to social media that he was providing his presidential plane to bring back the deportees.
Unbelievable. And I do love that. I want to freeze on that last image there. I mean, who do you think's going to win this fight? Who do you think's going to prevail in this fight? Yeah, and that all happened within like a 12-hour window on Sunday yesterday. Here it is. This is the tweet on X, the everything app, from Gustavo Petro. Muchas gracias. As you can see, he said, Los EU no pueden tratar como de... Oh, I'm sorry. Are you not bilingual? Oh, well then, let me translate this for you. The U.S. cannot treat Colombian migrants as criminals. I deny the entry of American planes carrying Colombian migrants into our territory. The United States must establish a protocol for the dignified treatment of migrants before we receive them. You know, there's something very fascinating about a person who, let's face it, as Colombia goes, if you're not Pablo Escobar, you're the president of the United States. Those are pretty much the two pinnacle spots that you can have. You can be a giant cocaine murderous drug lord, or you could be the president of the United States. This guy chose, the latter path. Good for him. But he is astride that nation. He is the president. He is the leader of that country. And I've never understood this about Latin American leaders and Central American leaders, who spend all of their time and all of their energy and all of their effort and all of their diplomatic know-how to try to compel another country to keep their citizens, right? Think about it for a minute. You're the president of Colombia, and you're really upset that your citizens are being returned to you. You're really upset that another country isn't taking care of the people that you're supposed to take care of. Now, I'm naive, but I would think if I'm president of Colombia, my main focus and my main priority 24/7, every single day of the week and every single minute of every hour of every day would be to make life better in Colombia so the Colombians in Colombia are happy to stay in Colombia. But no, the only time we hear from these people is when they're screaming at us because we're not treating their citizens properly when they're illegally in our country. How pathetically humiliating must this be for this guy, this president, whose main priority is to make sure that another country takes care of the people that he is supposed to take care of? So he decides he's going to go toe-to-toe with Donald Trump over this. Well, Bill Maloogian, who covers all things border and immigration for Fox News, has the breakdown. Now, this started at 1:27, as you can see. Per source with knowledge, Trump administration plans to retaliate against the Colombian president's decision to reject 2 deportation flights by closing the U.S. Embassy, Colombia's visa section tomorrow, where 1,500 appointments have been scheduled. I'm told additional retaliatory messages will be rolled out. All right, a little bit later. Breaking, Trump released a statement, announces more severe retaliatory moves against Colombia. 25% tariffs, travel ban, visa sanctions, enhanced CBP inspections, and financial sanctions. According to a senior administration official. Oh, where'd that quote go? This is a clear message we are sending that countries have an obligation to accept repatriation flights. Of course they do. Maloogian then goes on to say, according to a source with knowledge, Trump's team is drafting final documents for the president's signature. You see how this is like the threat is escalating. So I'm sorry, you think he's bluffing? You think he's bluffing? Okay, well, they're drafting the documents now. And he's ready to signature all these sanctions against Colombia. Secretary of State Rubio already directed the cancellation of all visa appointments, retaliatory process moving at lightning speed, I'm told. And then, when was that? That was 2:35 p.m. And then at 3:07 p.m., 30 minutes later, we get an official letter from the president of Colombia. It appears the Colombian president may now be backing down. He is offering his own presidential plane to be used for the deportations that were rejected this morning, saying he wants a dignified return of Colombian citizens. That's how it's done. That's how it's done. So not only is he accepting his people back into his country, but he's paying for the flight and he's sending his own plane. So we don't have to send our planes down a second time. You want to know the best part of how this entire thing played out? It all happened. So you saw the timeline there. It's all happening on Sunday during the day, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 2:30. I'm told that President Trump has upped the ante. He's got more tariffs he's going to levy against Colombia unless they take their people back. Now they're drafting up the paperwork, and Secretary of State Marco Rubio has already ordered the cancellation, right? All of that is happening midday Eastern time on Sunday. So where was Trump on Sunday? Was he at the White House and the Oval Office, burning up the phone lines, handling all of this? Was he, maybe he was at Mar-a-Lago because it was the weekend, but he was in his office there and he had all these people bustling around. No, you want to know what Trump was doing? This is what Trump was doing. He was golfing.
We love you. We love you. We are your members. Mr. Trump, a picture. We love you. Picture, Mr. Trump, picture. A picture. I love you. We love you so much. Yay.
Yeah. I don't know. I could be wrong, but those accents sounded distinctly Colombian to me. We love you. We love. So he's out there in the back nine playing golf with his buddies. And he's like, Mr. President, no word from Colombia yet. All right, raise the tariffs another 50% next week if we have to. And make sure that let Malusian know that we're drawing up the paperwork right now. Mr. President, we're golfing. Just let him know we're drawing up the paperwork. This is beautiful. That's what was going on in between shots on the golf course. Well, hey, tell him that we'll forget about the tariffs if he sends his own plane to get them. Right? This is how he negotiated it. Oh, and that part about Marco Rubio ordering all the visas to be canceled, or all the visa appointments canceled the next day. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is doing this and doing that. Where was Marco Rubio? He was also at Mar-a-Lago golfing. Well, or at least he was having a meal with the president after the golf game. Wow. There he is. That entire fight, that entire showdown, that diplomatic showdown between Colombia and the U.S. over their illegal immigrants, their citizens, and repatriation, and the threats of tariffs, and the threats of closing an embassy operations for visas, and on and on and on. It all took place while Trump and Marco Rubio were hanging out at the golf course. Have we ever been more back than we are right now? I can't wait to see how he's going to settle the war in Ukraine.
Hey, Larry.
Yes, sir.
Can we include just that one bit in Bill Malusian's thread of the AI photo that Donald Trump posted?
Oh, thank you. I missed that. You're right. Hang on. And then, of course, after he settled the international crisis and got his way and the president backed down, appropriately and understandably, Donald Trump somehow figured out Grok and posted a picture of himself as, I guess, a Latin American. What is this supposed to be, do you think? Is he like a mobster, or is he like the FBI guy going, it's probably not FBI, going down to clean up the mess in South America? Either way, somebody taught Trump how to use Grok, and the world will never, ever be the same. Thank you. I forgot about that part of it, Kevin. Well, the polls are in, and Donald Trump is actually more popular than any second-term president at this time in his presidency. Don't believe me? Well, you're not alone. Take a look at how the CNN host took the news when Harry Enton pulled up his magic board.
This is a very different Donald Trump. He's leading a very different administration, the way he's attacking things. And the American public is very much more in line with him than they were at any point during his entire first term.
Well, I would say, correction, this is not a very different Donald Trump. This is a very different Donald Trump as being viewed by voters in this.
In the way he's going about things with Susan Wiles leading things. I think he is, going at things in a much less disorganized fashion, much more organized.
Take me back in history.
Take you back in history. So it was so interesting to me that Donald Trump's first net approval rating of his second term is higher than his entire first term. And I was interested, has that ever happened? Has the second term net approval rating in the first month, have you ever had a higher rating than any net approval rating during the entire first term? Donald Trump is the only.
I have a really hard time believing this.
This is 100% true. I went back. I love spreadsheets. Donald Trump's is the first guy ever whose net approval rating in the first month of his second term is higher than any rating that he had in an entire first term, Kate Baldwin.
Hmm.
This is true. I don't make stuff up. The numbers are the numbers.
I believe you in nothing except when you have it in the wall, and then I believe everything you
Then
say.
that's exactly right.
Which is why.
All
This
right,
is a-
Kate Baldwin. I love that. Who is this? Colin Rugg, who pulled out the screenshot of her expression. Good job, Colin. We're going to look at this one more time because there's two moments here that tell you everything there is to know about CNN. By the way, again, I hate to do this to them because I'm helping them out. It's one thing, I've got this book coming out tomorrow called Shameless Liars. It's about how bad the media is and how they lied about Trump all during the 2024 presidential election. They were terrible. They're awful. And one thing that I learned going back, and I went back meticulously and looked at the media's behavior in covering the 2024 presidential election, and I reached a very sad conclusion. They're not very smart. They have two skill sets. They look good on camera, and they can read a teleprompter. I don't see much more than that. They're just not that smart. Think about it for a second, because she's getting all exercise here, and everyone's going, "Oh my gosh, he's got a higher net approval rating in the first month of his second term than he did in the first month of his first term, and no president has ever done that before." Well, gee, can we figure out why that might be, guys? I mean, again, I don't want to take anything away from Donald Trump. He's having a magnificent first 7 days. But it's not because he's so loved right now, although he is pretty popular. It's because he was so vilified last time, you idiots. It's because you guys kept saying that he was an illegitimate president. You guys kept saying that he was Hitler. You guys kept saying that he didn't really win, that the Russians gave him the election. So that dragged his numbers down. Most presidents enjoy a honeymoon of sorts where they get into office and the American people want to give them the benefit of the doubt. So their numbers are pretty high. He never got that because you people were so awful to him and lied about him. So yeah, they like him better this time around because they don't believe you this time. But the fact that his net approval ratings are higher this time than last time is really more about how low they were last time because of your lies. But watch this real fast one more time. Kate Baldwin.
Very different Donald Trump. He's leading a very different administration, the way he's attacking things. And the American public is very much more in line with him than they were at any point during his entire first term.
Well, I would say correction. This is not a very different Donald Trump.
Correction. So she's fact checking her own employee, her own coworker. Correction. This is not a very different Donald Trump. Actually, it is a very different Donald Trump. It's a very different Donald Trump. Look at the face. Look at the face on her. She's angry about this and skeptical. So correction. This is not a very different Donald Trump. It is, objectively speaking, a very different Donald Trump, not just in his approach, but also in his energy and his strategies and his tactics. And yeah, even some of his policies. And then, so there's that, the correction part. And then there's this.
Approval rating in the first month. Have you ever had a higher rating than any net approval rating during the entire first term? Donald Trump is the only.
I have a really hard time believing this.
This is 100% true.
I have a really hard time believing this. Well, honey, you'll get over it. These are the news people. These are the journalists. These are the people delivering information to you. And she's having a therapy session on screen. I'm really having a hard time believing this. After everything we've said about him, it's almost like CNN is irrelevant and no one listens to us. You're getting close, Kate. So close. In fact, the poll numbers are even better than what you just saw. CBS poll now we're looking at this. It comes from the Trump War Room website. As you can see, MAGA mandate. Look at the support, not just for Trump, but also for his choices for cabinet and for his policies. Rubio for Secretary of State. Trump voters 75%. Overall, 44% say it's a good choice, 25% say bad choice, 31% aren't paying attention. Tulsi Gabbard, again, for Trump voters, 71% say it's a good choice, 36% overall against 27%. Hegseth for Secretary of State. Trump supporters at 64%. Overall, 33-28 with 39 not knowing what the hell's going on. And then with RFK for Health and Human Services, you've got 47-34 good choice over bad choice. For Trump voters, 80%. That's pretty amazing that Kennedy enjoys an 80% pick of all Trump voters. What about Trump's handling of the presidential transition? 60% approve of his handling of the transition. This is according to a CBS News poll. More good numbers. Starting the program to deport immigrants in this country illegally, 57% approve, 43 disapprove. And be clear here, look at this. This says deport all immigrants in U.S. illegally, not just the criminals, all of them. More good numbers for Trump. Trump is going to make your food and grocery prices go down 44%, 35% say go up. This obviously is something that the Trump administration should prioritize because the expectations are high there. Tariffs on imported goods. Are you in favor or not? It's close across the board in America, but the majority of Americans favor this. And for Trump voters, it is overwhelming. You see how these numbers just keep on going? It's pretty amazing from Trump War Room. Because the numbers are on his side right now, because the people are on his side right now, and CNN still quite can't handle it. I got to say, and again, I hate giving advice to people who don't like me, and I don't want to make them better. I hate to say it. CNN just suffered, 200 layoffs or 100 layoffs? I would love for CNN to keep doing what they're doing and go out of business. And there be no more CNN, or have it be remember when Newsweek was sold for like $1, and Newsweek isn't a thing anymore. Nobody cares. I would love for that to happen to CNN. Someone buy it for $1 and have it be some sort of like online shopping television station or something. But if they're interested, they could actually fix their brand. They could actually get viewers back. The woman who's on screen during a news segment showing Trump's good polls, she shouldn't be crapping on Trump and saying, "No, correction, this is not a different Donald Trump. He's just this." She shouldn't be emoting and wringing her hands and contorting her face in disgust, saying, "I have a hard time believing that people like this guy." Yeah, she should be sent to where she belongs, MSNBC, or, maybe the Cartoon Network. She'll get more ratings. Also, if Warner Brothers really did care about saving that brand and maybe even getting viewers and making money again at CNN, all they need to do is get rid of all of the people who have decided that their job over there is to promote an agenda for one political side of the equation or the other, overlooking the truth, overlooking facts, and crapping on people who disagree with them. And then bring in some new voices. Bring in some, and again, by the way, there's nothing wrong with people having an opinion. There's nothing wrong with journalists expressing their opinion. But don't call those who disagree with you scum of the earth fascists. Actually allow them to have an opinion, respectfully disagree with them, engage in a debate with them on a nightly basis, and you'd be amazed at how your ratings will grow. CNN, you'll actually salvage your brand, and you'll get back to the idea of news and discussions about important issues instead of, whatever the hell it is you've become. I wish I could tell you, but I don't watch anymore. I just wait for your clips to go viral and then share them here with my friends. All right, guys. Thank you very much for a fun day. Sorry about our lighting today. I'm realizing, I know I look like I'm in a dungeon. We'll try to adjust our lighting tomorrow. It's really something. Angela, thank you so much for the super chat. JD owned Deface the Nation. Trump owned Governor Hair Gel, Deep State, WEF, Columbia, all in the same weekend. We are not tired of winning. Let's do buckle up for week 2. I hope you guys don't expect this kind of pace every week of the presidency, though. Thank you, Angela, for that $2 super chat. As yes, bass was turned into a minnow. Although technically, you can be a minnow and a bass, can't you? I'm not sure. And then it looks like we have from Rumble, our buddy Arthur Brogdon. Thanks, brother. Hey, Larry, Kurt Schlichter gave your book a great review in print at Town Hall. What's the name again? Why, I'm glad you asked. It's Shameless Liars. How Trump defeated the legacy media and made them irrelevant. And it releases tomorrow at midnight tonight. You can buy your book and it'll be delivered to you on Kindle. Pre-orders for Kindle right now, so it'll get delivered right to your Kindle. But if you want that hardcover or paperback, you can You can order it tomorrow and it'll ship tomorrow. In fact, I got my preview copies this weekend, and the book looks great, and I'm really excited. It's #1 in politics right now in elections, and it's #1 in media and internet in politics on Rumble. So Kurt was very kind in his write-up for the book today at Town Hall, and he also wrote the foreword to my book. So, he should promote it quite a bit. No, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys if you do want the book. By the way, I'm going to be sending out signed, autographed copies of the book at some point soon too. We just have to work out the mechanics for that. So if you want a signed copy, let me know, and we will make that work. Anything else? I wasn't going to mention the book today, Kevin, but Arthur Brogdon, with his incredible $10 super chat over at Rumble, compelled me to. Okay.
That's a wrap.
Kevin doesn't want me to talk about the book too much during the show. At the end of the show, I can do it though, right?
Shameless Larry is what this is.
Shameless Larry. That is our wrap. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. Thank you so much. And we'll have better lighting, I promise. In the meantime, I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.